Welcome to Honeybee, real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. Some betrayals cut so deep, they don't just break your heart. They reshape the very core of who you are. No husband walks into marriage ever expecting he'll face the nightmare of his wife's unfaithfulness. But life has a way of throwing blows when you're least prepared. What happened to my marriage didn't just end the bond one thought was unshakable. It reshaped me into someone I barely recognized. My name is Gavin. I was married to Alice for 8 years, until everything came crashing down on what should have been nothing more than a regular afternoon. For nearly a decade, I believed our marriage was built on loyalty, love, and respect. She had stayed home through most of those years, a choice we made together once I began earning enough to support us both with ease. I worked long hours as a financial consultant, out the door before sunrise and back late into the night. Our neighborhood was the kind of place where everyone waved hello, shared small talk over fences, and invited one another to backyard barbecues. It felt safe, quiet, the kind of place where betrayal seemed impossible. Next door lived Jeff, a divorced man in his early 40s, who freelanced as a graphic designer. He was friendly, always willing to lend tools, or lend a hand when needed. Looking back, I can see the signs I ignored. Alice would bring up Jeff's name a little too often, knew too many details about his life and work, and on the days she claimed to bump into him while getting the mail or doing yard work, she always seemed to dress nicer. But back then I was too trusting, too buried in work and responsibilities to imagine betrayal happening under my own roof. I believe in our marriage so deeply that the thought of disloyalty never crossed my mind, until one day everything shattered. A client meeting wrapped up earlier than expected, and instead of going back to the office, I decided to surprise Alice for lunch. I imagined it would be a nice gesture. Maybe we'd share takeout, steal a little rare time together. In the middle of my busy schedule, instead of pulling into the garage, I parked in the driveway and walked up quietly. It was around 1:30 in the afternoon. Jeff's car was in his driveway, too. Nothing unusual, since he worked from home. I slipped through the front door, hoping to surprise Alice. At first, I didn't see her. I figured she might be in the shower, or had stepped out. But then, sounds drifted down from upstairs. Indistinct at first, but enough to make me uneasy. Step by step, I climbed the staircase, my chest tightening with every movement. As I neared our bedroom, the sounds grew unmistakable. Alice was with another man. They were so lost in their passion, they didn't even hear me approaching. I froze outside the door, my mind scrambling for any other explanation. But deep down I knew, when I finally pushed the door open, the sight that met me was worse than anything I had ever feared. Alice was in our bed with Jeff. They were so absorbed, they didn't notice me at first. The fury that consumed me in that moment was unlike anything I'd ever felt. It was blinding, white hot, burning through every rational thought. I had never been violent in my life, but in that instant, I lost all control. I lunged at Jeff, dragging him from the bed, slamming him to the floor. My fists hammered his face and ribs as he struggled beneath me. Alice's screams were distant, muffled, like background noise to my rage. Jeff eventually broke free, bloody and panicked, scrambling for his clothes. He bolted from the house, half-dressed, stumbling toward his place next door. I stood in the doorway, fists raw and bleeding, watching him flee. When I turned back, Alice was at the top of the stairs, shaking, dressed in haste, tears streaking her face. Her crying only fueled my disgust. I looked up at her and said the words that ended our marriage. "This is over." My voice was flat, cold, stripped of every ounce of love that once lived there. She tried to speak, but I turned and walked away, retreating into my study, the only place in the house that still felt untouched. That room became my refuge. For days, then weeks, when I wasn't at the office, I stayed there, working, reading, or sitting in silence, trying to comprehend the wreckage of my life. Alice tried repeatedly to reach me, to talk, to explain, but I couldn't listen. The woman I had trusted had become a stranger, someone whose voice I couldn't bear to hear. I poured myself into the practical side of ending our marriage. I hired a lawyer the very next day and began divorce proceedings immediately. The process moved quickly, considering our finances and assets. Alice begged, pleaded, wept. She claimed the devil had tempted her, that Jeff meant nothing, that she still loved only me. But none of that mattered. Trust, once destroyed, cannot be rebuilt. The legal system granted her a sizable settlement, a lump sum rather than monthly support, so I could sever ties cleanly. Generous, perhaps, considering her betrayal. But after 8 years together, I wanted her gone more than I wanted revenge. I fought to keep the house, and through careful negotiation, I did. That home became my anchor, a symbol of stability in the storm. Watching her pack up and leave was one of the hardest things I've ever endured. Despite the betrayal, a part of me still loved the woman I thought she had been. In the months that followed, rage slowly gave way to a heavy sadness. Nights spent in my study were haunted by memories of our wedding, our trips, our laughter. Now each one was poisoned by the knowledge of her disloyalty. When the divorce was final, I buried myself in work, choosing career over companionship. I built walls around my heart so high no one could climb them. Friends encouraged me to date again, but I couldn't. I wasn't willing to open myself to that kind of pain ever again. A year passed. My life was steady, predictable, safe. Then one Sunday morning, there was a knock at my door. It was Alice. Nervous, subdued, she asked if she could come in. I didn't invite her. I just waited. She poured out an apology, saying she'd spent every day regretting that loneliness had consumed her, that she still loved me. She wasn't asking for marriage again, only for a chance, any chance, to be in my life once more. I listened. I saw the regret in her eyes, and I believed she was sorry. But sorrow doesn't erase betrayal. Her tears didn't change the memory of what I walked in on that day. When she finished, I told her one word. No. Firm, steady, final. I explained that her actions had changed me forever, that the man who once trusted her no longer existed. This wasn't revenge. It was survival. I told her not to come back again. She sobbed, thanked me for listening, and walked away. That was the last time I ever saw her. Her visit left me drained, but also with a strange sense of closure. I knew I'd made the right choice. Some betrayals can never be undone, and though I still don't know if what I lost was love or just vulnerability, I do know one thing. Her affair didn't just end our marriage. It ended the version of me who could ever trust so blindly again. That man is gone forever.